السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Welcome you to this next class on Surah al-Ikhlaas, our ninth in this series. Okay, so the uniqueness about this particular surah is that it gets a name. In fact, this is the common name that has been assigned to this surah called Surah al-Ikhlaas. Ikhlas means sincerity. And if you notice from all the surahs we've done till now, which is almost about 9 or 10, only Surah Fatiha didn't have the word Fatiha in the surah itself. In this surah as well, the word al-Ikhlas doesn't actually appear in this text, as you can see from these 4 ayat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So that's the one unique thing. Then what does this concept of sincerity, how does it come about as the sort of the most appropriate name for the surah? It comes out because the meaning of the word ikhlas means sincerity in one's religion or in one's worship and total dedication to the one true God or being or ilah. So in terms of trying to negate all other possibilities of polytheism and anthropomorphism, as well as anything else that's anti-monotheism. That is what al-Ikhlas is about, is sincerity in our belief, essentially. Now, Abu Bakr al-Ghazi, the famous Mufassir, he has assigned almost 22 names to the surah. I'll just give you a few. The one is called al-Mushtashkish, which means the remover of diseases or purges the sicknesses of the heart. Now, this is the one sickness of the heart is the idea of whether it's monotheism or polytheism or something else. So if you want to purge or remove any doubt about what you believe in, then this is the surah you need to read, and it will reinforce your belief for you. The other name is given is tajrib, what removes misconceptions. In other words, over time and over the centuries, over the millennia, there have been many sort of groups and tribes and families and peoples that believed in all kinds of things. There were some that believed in fire, some that believed in the sun and the moon and the stars, some believed in a kind of a spirit that permeates and prevails over us, or any supernatural power of a sort that you could actually imagine. So what Tajreeb does is it removes all those misconceptions. It puts all that aside and it makes you focus on the oneness of Allah as explained in this very brief but very profound surah. The other thing the surah does is it talks about Tawheed, or it explains this concept of what is oneness or having a theology that is indivisible by anything. And it basically describes what Allah's integrity and identity is. And it does it in both in a positive way, as we see in ayah number 1, and in a negative way, as you see in the last ayah, talking about ahad in terms of a positive way and a negative way. And we'll look at the meaning just now. The other meaning is, or the other title is ma'rifah, that is to know something from the word arafah. You know, Arafat is the place where people go there to learn about yourself, to do self-reflection on the plains of Arafat during Hajj, to take account of yourself and your deeds, wearing that simple ihram clothing with which you'll be buried one day. So ma'rifah is to know something or someone in a kind of a deep sense. The other word that is used in this surah, samad, and what's unique about this word is it's the only one place in the Quran where the word samad is used. So that's the very unique thing about this particular word and this surah. And what samad means is a quality that somebody or some entity can have as being the absolute one in power and the person or an entity that does not need anybody or anything to exist. Or another dimension of the meaning is the persistent one. In other words, the one that will outlast everything else. So even at the day of Qiyamah, when the entire world and the universe will crash and become nothing, Allah will remain as being the Samad, and He will take our accounting on that particular day. The other meaning or other title is Asas. Asas means the essence or core or the basis of anything. Now, if you look at the entire Quran, the concept of Tawheed is kind of permeating this entire Quran. Some say almost 30% of the Quran talks about the oneness and the indivisibility of Allah. And to such an extent that some of the Sahabas used to even read this surah often just because of this particular attribute of it, that Tawheed is embedded in the surah. And the more I can come closer to this concept of Tawheed and internalizing it and imbibing it in my heart and mind, the better person I will be. So may Allah give us the strength to become like this in terms of understanding the surah and imbibing this quality. On the left, I've got some other meanings or titles for the surah: divine unity, oneness, pure faith, pure sincerity, pure truth, sincere religion, sincerity, etc. So these are just the names of the particular surah. Let's move on to what was the reason for the revelation of the surah. So one day a Bedouin chief from Najd came to the Prophet and asked him, describe who or what is your Allah. Right? This concept of, like, we worship idols, but who's this Allah you talking of? What is he? Right? Then the second question the person asked the Prophet is, what is that God of yours made of? Is he made of gold or silver or wood, precious stone? Like, what is the characteristic quality of that God that you believe in? What is he made of? Because around and in and around the Kaaba, we can see all our idols, and they've got shape and form and size and dimension, but yours, we can't see and tell us who or what this thing is, right? Then the third thing that comes to the heart of Arab culture was, what is its lineage? You know, when they talk of nasab, who was this God's father, this Allah's father, or even did he have a mother? And did this Allah, is it able to have sons and daughters? In others, can it have a family? Can it have offspring? So these were the three questions asked. So Jibreel on this occasion was sent down with this particular surah in its entirety. So 4 ayah, less than 20 words, explaining Tawheed in a very, very magnificent and profound way. So if you look at the 4 ayah, the first line says, Kul huwallahu, and then the word ahad is added to it. So it can actually mean Kul huwallahu, and you can even say Kul huwa ahadun. Right? So there's like two subjects and predicates in this particular ayah, that Allah is the one, and ahad meaning the one or the one and only. Then the second ayah talks about a unique quality of Allah that is nowhere else in the Quran, meaning the eternal, the absolute, the free of need, the one who gives but the one who does not need in return. Then the third ayah explains this idea of the lineage, where it says, Lam yalid, he did not give birth to any son or daughter. Right? And that was the common conception amongst the Christians and the Jews. The Jews had Uzair or Ezra, the son of God, and the Christians had Isa or Jesus, and they believed him to be the son of God. So this small two words, Lam Yalid, is simply saying that he does not have any children. His essence or his that is so magnificent that why would he even need children? And even if he had children, why would he have a son or even a daughter or even many? Why is there a need for that? There's absolutely no need for it, man. And then secondly, walam yulad, he was not born through a process of being given birth to. There was no like father and mother or the male and female that procreated and gave birth to a entity called God or entity called Allah. So he didn't give birth himself, and nor was he given birth to by other beings in order for him to come into existence. And then finally it says, وَلَمْ يَكُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and there is none comparable or equal. Kufuwan is like there's just nothing equal to that one person, the Ahad that's repeated from line 1 and line 4. So Al-Razi explains that he says what's unique about the surah is that in verses 1 and 4, the first and the last one that ends with Ahad, that one explains Tawheed in a unique way, right? Where Allah is one and cannot be, there's nothing like him. And then Allah Samad, his grace and mercy is sort of extolled or explained in the word Samad, where he is the everlasting and the sustainer and nourisher of everything, and he does not need anybody or anything to keep him alive or to keep him in existence. He will survive and he will be there at all times till eternity and to perpetuity. And then the third ayah explains the fact that there was no family lineage to his being. He didn't come from somebody and he didn't give birth to anybody as well. Right? So there was no birth process involved. So this whole concept of Trinity is negated in just a few short, in one line. And also the idea of having a father or a son, what creeps in when you have that notion of a belief is that then you can use somebody else as an intermediary when you appear before God, where you can ask the Son of God, as it were, if there was such a thing, to sort of mediate on your behalf and plead your case in the court of Allah. And there's no such thing in Islam. Islam is you and Allah are the two entities. It's like he's the Rabb and you are the Abd or the servant or the slave. There's nothing else in between. You don't have to go to an alim or a Maulana to make dua or to seek penance or to seek your dua through his, wasata or through his being or his medium. You can go straight. You ask Allah directly for whatever you need, and He responds directly because He's closer to us than our jugular veins. So this, in essence, is what the surah is about. Now, to understand the surah a bit more, I think we need to look at some concepts that come out. So the first concept is about Tawheed, and from it you get the root Ahad. That Ahad that's lower down, this Ahadiyah, this concept, this root is this word Tawheed comes from Ahad, right? So what Tawheed means is pristinely pure, absolutely pure, and it's unadulterated. In other words, not mixed with anything. It's absolutely pure, pristine, monotheism. So in other words, if it's monotheism, then it negates all these other isms, the polytheism, which is more than one god or more than one idol, anthropomorphism, which is giving qualities like of strength, of love, or something that we understand in terms of our emotion and what we can see. When we give these qualities to a god, then we believe in not his totality, but we only believe in that one sort of quality of his. Whereas we know Allah through 99 names or through 99 sifat or adjectives that describe who he is. And it all comes back to one concept of Tawheed, one Allah in essence. Then the other thing is we have others that deny everything. Atheism, right? They do not believe in any higher being. And then we have the agnostics as well, who are the doubters, where one day they this and one day they that, or sometimes they believe this and sometimes they can believe that, and they can change like a weathercock, right? Whatever they want to believe, they can believe. But what Tawheed does is it negates all these other isms in one go. Right. Then the other concept we need to understand is from Tawheed, the word Ahad you get as a root. You even get Wahid coming out from Ahad. Wahid means the number one. Now, when you count, you say Wahid, Ithnan, Thalatha, Arba, Khamsa, like that. So you get a masculine version of 1, 2, 3, 4. You can get a feminine version of 1, 2, 3, 4, like Wahida, Ithnata, Thalath, Arba, Khamsa, Sitta, like that, without the ta or with the ta, depending on how the gender applies. So Wahid has if you had to say Allah is Wahid, then by implication you are saying he can even be a Wahida, which is the feminine of Wahid. And obviously you can then multiply him by saying 1 times 2 or 2 times 3. You can work all kinds of numbers and think of the biggest number and think that is God. But that even the biggest number is not the biggest number because it's just our conception of what numbers are. Right? So in essence, we can't use Wahid to describe Allah as such. Then the other version of counting is where you say Awal and Thani and Thalis and Rabi, or first, second, third, fourth. Again, you can't use that for Allah as well, because if you say Al Awal, then there is a Thani and a Thalis, right? There is a second and a third that comes after one, after that first. So even that concept is thrown out of the way because it's not described in the surah with the words Wahid or Al-Awwal. Instead, the word Ahad is used, and this is now the key concept that we're going to look at today. Ahad is on its own only in one way, which is Ahad, or sometimes you can get a Al in front, you can even say Al-Ahad. Now, this word Ahad is unique in the sense that there's no antonym, there's no opposite for it. There's no like if this was male, then the feminine would be ahadatun. There's no ahadatun as a word in Arabic, right? So there's no like antonym for it. Then there's no diminutive, which is like you can't make it like a bigger ahad and a smaller ahad. Ahad is just ahad. That's why in an idol worship context, you can get a small idol and you can get a medium size and a bigger and extra large and all the different sizes. Whereas ahad is just one thing. It's not. There's no variation of size in the thing. Then the third quality of ahad is there's no multiplication. In other words, from the one you can't get three, or you can't get two, or you can't get a Father and a Son and a Holy Ghost kind of conception coming in, right? And all this is not befitting to his greatness anyway, to have any offspring or even a partner or a spouse of any sorts. There's no need for any of this. Right? I mean, the Jahiliyyah Arabs used to say the angels are the banat of Allah, Auzu billah. They say the angels were like the daughters of Allah. Now, even that concept, where they get it from and why they associate it with, it's mind blowing, but nevertheless, it was there. So he wasn't born. Then we know that from some of these qualities, like when we say he's the all-seeing. While we say all-seeing, it doesn't mean that he's got eyes and he's looking at us, or that he's all-hearing, that he's got ears, and the way we've got ears, he's got ears. It's not like that. Or the fact that he is able to create or make or build or bring into existence this entire world and the creation and the heavens and the earth, but he didn't need hands to do it. Right? His Zat, his essence, allows him to be all knowing, all hearing, all seeing, all able to do anything he wants to. He just has to say kun for your kun, and it happens. Right? And likewise, he's not sitting on a throne, although sometimes in the Quran there is a verse that talks about the arsh is on the water and all of this, but it's not to be taken in a literal sense that there's an arsh, like a big throne sitting somewhere in the water. Because the moment you conceptualize it as a throne or as a seat or a chair, then you are giving him shape and form, and you're confining him in space and time. Whereas Allah's essence is like timeless, spaceless. He's eternal. He's the first and the last. So in essence, those are just there for us to understand things, but it's not that physically that he's got ears and hands and eyes and a throne. Right? The other quality he's got is Da'im, which means he's eternal and everlasting. He will outlive all this creation, this magnificent universe that we have. He's going to outlive it. When the creation comes to an end, he's still going to be there. Right? And having said all this, now we come to the fact that because he's not a physical being, he does not need to eat or drink or even get tired or need to sleep or rest. Nothing of that applies to him. He's so unique in the sense that he's just Ahad. Right? He's just the one and only, and there's nothing like him. Now, Bilal, radiallahu anhu, the Abyssinian slave, when he converted to Islam, he converted in the early days of Islam, and he suffered at the hands of Abu Jahl and other kuffar. I don't remember who his slave master was, but what they did to him was you know serious enough to make any person with like even half his faith change his faith. Where they took him in the burning heat of the Meccan sun in the desert and took off his clothing and dragged him on the surface of this burning hot sand in the midday heat with the whip in hand, saying that if you stop saying Bilal, we will stop punishing you. And to which Bilal, he still said, you know what, Ahad, Ahad. And that is the one word that sends shivers down all kuffar in till eternity, where somebody says Ahad or says Allahu Akbar. The enemy of Islam cannot bear to hear that phrase or that word, because for them that is the ultimate dividing line between him and others. Right? So this word is a very strong word, ahad, and inshallah we must internalize it. Going on, his other feature is he's kamil. In other words, he's complete. There's nothing short in his essence, right? In his essence, he's the all and the akhir. And then the second line says, Kul huwallahu ahad. Now, although they use huwa, they don't use huwa in a human or animal sense of being a he, and therefore there's a she as well. They just simply say, is a being, is an ultimate entity. They just, for convenience, use the word huwa just to express it, but it's not in a human or animal sense of being a male, because there's no female to it. Right? And then the last concept here is Allah. If there were multiple gods in charge of this universe, and we had this, if you look at Greek mythology, there was a god of war and a god of love and a god of this and a god of that, where gods used to fight each other and the one used to win according to the myths of the day, right? Likewise, in Hinduism as well, we have a god of this and a god of that. But in essence, our Tawheed is different from all that, where there's no conflict, there's unity, there's harmony in the entire creation. If you look at the sun and the moon and the planets and the seasons and the waves and everything, there's just harmony in the way everything works. And if there were multiple gods in charge, there would be real problem. There'll be actual chaos in this creation. Because one God might say, hey, I want it to rain today, and the other one would say, no, 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 I want it to be hot. And another one say, no, I want, there'll be just chaos in everything. Whereas the fact that everything is so united and so in harmony with each other all points to the fact that Allah is only one and He's indivisible and He's in charge and He will always be there. Then we look at some other concepts that come out is the word ilah. Ilah is an entity or a being worthy of worship. Now we have in the first kalima when we say la ilaha illallah. So la is a negation saying there is no, and then there's ilah, which is an entity or worthy entity worthy of worship. Illallah, except Allah. So that first shahada that we say, and any revert also says that la ilaha illallah and Muhammadur Rasulullah is the fundamental article of our faith. It all starts with that little slogan of affirmation and conviction, and hopefully a wholehearted conviction where there's no ambiguity, there's no polytheism, nothing comes out, simply one pure way, the ilah. Now we come to this word samad, which is unique, absolutely independent. We need the samad, but he has no need for us or anything else to help him survive in any way. And also he's not dependent on our worship. So although worship is compulsory on us as the slaves of Allah, the salah is obligatory, but whether we do it or not, he's independent of it. We're doing it for our own sake, for our own selves, and for our own salvation. He's not dependent on our worship at all. He's got the whole universe, all creation, worshipping Him at all times. The clouds, in the way they move, they are saying the tasbih of Allah. The fish in the sea, the way they swim and the way they work and live, they saying this tasbih in another form. So everything in the creation is under His, worshipping Him. So we as insan or human beings, whether we worship or don't, it's irrelevant, immaterial to Him. Better for us if we do, but if we don't, nothing. We're not harming his independence or taking away from him anything by not worshiping him. Right? Also, we cannot count his blessings. If you look around us, the food, the water, everything that we've been blessed with, even if we have to enumerate it, count it 1, 2, 3, 4, and you come to 1 million, or come to 10 million, or come to 1 billion things that we have in this world as blessings from him, we cannot count it. And on top of it, whenever we are in need and we are in distress, like for instance, if we are sick in a hospital bed, or we're sitting in an airplane and we're going through turbulence and the thing is moving this way and that way, and our heart is going up and down and we're screaming and the rest of it, or we're sitting in a ship and it's being rocked by the waves or in a thunderstorm, we then in our hearts of hearts say, you know what, Allah, please take us out of this distress and out of this calamity or near calamity. And if we get out of it, then we'll believe in what we have to do. So we cry out in times of distress for His help, and He gives it to us. Right? But He, on the other hand, is not in distress or in need of anything. He simply is Allah. Right? And then you look at even atheists, the ones that don't believe in Allah, they themselves, in times of dire need, they believe in Allah. Like if you look at Pharaoh, all his life, he never accepted Islam. But when the the Red Sea was going to engulf him at that last moment just before he died, now he says, Aslam to, I become a Muslim, I submit to you. And Allah said, you know what, unfortunately, it's too late now. So Allah engulfed him and killed him in the water. And to make him a sign for perpetuity, his body was not able to be buried within the ground on the earth. So they created that extra little pyramid for him and embalmed his body and made him live forever as a sign of a pharaoh, somebody who went against the cause of Allah, and see what was his outcome. He's dead, but he's still kind of alive in people's memory to remind them of what you shouldn't become in life. Right? So this is the concept of samad coming out in another way. So basically, Tawheed is about our relationship where He is the Rabb and we are the Abd. Those two things, we had in Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, and then Iyaka na'budu, we only you do we worship. So this is essentially what Tawheed is about. If we can understand that we are just the Abd and He's the Rabb, that's what matters. Right, so to go to the surah very quickly, I think you understand all of it already. This is one of the four kuls, right? So kul, where the Prophet is told, come out openly and tell the kuffar or everybody around you, Huwallahu ahad. He is Allah, He is the one. Now here, notice this ahadun. Can you see that the matania is indefinite, but the way it's translated is He is the one. So even though there's no al on it, and you can put a al, but the way it's put here is He is Allah and He is the one and only. Right? Allah Samad, we know that Allah is the eternal, absolute, free of need, doesn't need anything, right? And He wasn't given birth to, nor was He came about through a birth process. And then if you're still in doubt about all these three concepts, then you come to this other one here, where you say, and there is none to Him comparable anyone. Like literally, that's the way I'm translating it but in terms of like an English sentence, there is or there will be, and there will never be anyone or none will be comparable or equal to Him in any way. Nothing is on par with Him. He's just unique as an identity. Now, if you look at names of boys given with the word Abdul in front, right? So you can have an Abdullah, where you can say servant of Allah. You can say Abdul Ahad, right? You can say it's servant of the one or the one. You can even have Abdul Samad, like servant of this quality of being free and absolute need. My name, Abdul Majid, servant of the glorious. Abdul Rahim, servant of the most merciful. Abdul Wahab, Abdul Wafar. So all those Abdul names that come before the 99 sifat of Allah, when we use those words or those names given to boys, we must make sure we use it as a combination of two words, like Abdullah is the word or the name, or Abdul Ahad is the word, or Abdul Samad, or Abdul Majid, Abdul Rahim, right? So you must always use the Abd and the quality. You can't just use the second word where you call a boy Abdullah and then you say, Allah, come here. Right? It doesn't work like that. You have to use Abdullah because you can say, oh, servant of Allah, come here. But you can't say, hey Allah, do this, do here. Right? You can't say also, you are the one. This quality of one cannot be given to a human being or to one person. Right? Although he's one boy, but you can't do that. Then, so that we just need to remember that names of boys that comes with Abd, we must use the Abd and the Al and whatever the word follows it, right? Then there were two Sahabas in the time of the Prophet, one in Syria and Sham and one in the Imam of the Kuba Mosque. They used to love the Surah so much, to such an extent that in every rakat they read, when there was a Surah, like Alhamdu and a Surah to be read, they read a part of the Quran and then they read Kul Huwallahu and then the one went into Ruku. The other gentleman did it the other way, where he, after Surah Fatiha, he read Kul Huwallahu first and then he read another part of the Quran and then he went into Ruku. Now, the Sahabas who heard these two people doing it this way, they were like sort of saying, why the Prophet doesn't do it? Why you people are doing this? So they came to the Prophet and asked him, what's the story? So the Prophet asked them, ask those two people why they're doing it. And they both answers were they like this concept of Tawheed so much because it came from polytheism into monotheism. And they wanted to enunciate and, say it often because they just were in love with the Surah. And for that reason, they're repeating it in every rakat. And the Prophet said, look, if they're doing it for a good intention and a good reason, let them continue doing it because of their love for this particular surah. So I think in that sense, you can see how some of the Sahabas got so attached to this concept of Tawheed and liked it to such an extent that they made it a thing in their life in every salah where surah was to have been read. And then the last comment I want to make is, today we live in such a world where we live hectic lives. We're all chasing after the world and all its riches and its wealth and its prestige. And with it, we develop an ego and pride sometimes and arrogance. And what this surah teaches us is about humility, that if we believe wholeheartedly in that Allah is the one, the Samad, the Malik, the Rabb, everything, then our relationship to Him should be that we are the Abd. We are the servant and the slave of this magnificent master that we all have. And obviously, having said that, we must be prepared to even shed our blood in the cause of Islam if the need arises. We must be able to give up everything we have. And today in Gaza, we're having that experience of people literally with the clothes on their back, giving up everything just for the sake of a higher sort of a higher desire. And their desire for Shahada is like ultimate. It's like so profound that makes me and you wonder where we stand in terms of this hierarchy of having faith and having conviction of Allah. And even with all the turmoil they're going through in their lives, they still say, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, that Allah is enough for us and He will be our judge on that day when we stand in front of Him. So may Allah make us like them and learn a lesson, a contemporary lesson for our lives to change. And let us become like Bilal and say Ahad very profoundly, dogmatically, and with conviction, so that there's no doubt in our minds as to what we believe in. And inshallah, that will lead us to Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim and ultimate to our salvation. that we end. Surah Al-Asr, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Al-Asr, Innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr.